Let me tell you about four people. Robert is 68, Karen is 52, Marcus is 38, Zoe is 24. You may have come across versions of their stories before. What they did wrong, what they should have done differently, how each generation fumbled it in their own special way. And look, there's truth in that. But here's what I didn't tell you. Every single one of them, at some point, also got something right. Something that, if they'd leaned into it harder, would have changed everything. Some of it is uniquely theirs. Some of it is the same thing, just wearing different clothes depending on the decade. There's a win hiding in every generation's story. And by the end of this video, you're going to see yours. Before we get into each of them, I want to say something clearly, because I think it matters. Most personal finance content treats generations like punchlines. Boomers ruined the economy. Millennials can't stop buying coffee. Gen Z is chronically online. Gen X is just quietly ignored, which is almost worse. That's not what this is. Because when you actually look at the data and at the real lives behind the data, every generation was dealt a genuinely different hand. Different interest rates, different housing markets, different economic shocks, different cultural pressures. They weren't all playing the same game and just scoring differently. The game kept changing. And yet, despite all of that, each generation produced people who figured something out, who got one thing, maybe more, genuinely right. And those wins are worth understanding, not just to feel good about your generation, but because the most useful thing you can do right now is borrow the best instinct from all four of them simultaneously. That's what we're here to do. Robert is 68, and he's a boomer. And boomers get a lot of grief. But stay with me. Robert bought a house in 1983. He didn't agonize over it the way people do now. He didn't run spreadsheets comparing renting versus buying, didn't stress test 7 different mortgage scenarios. He just bought it because that's what you did. Because owning felt more real than renting, and the bank said yes. And so he signed. And here's the thing people miss when they tell Robert's story. That instinct, that almost unthinking instinct to acquire an asset and hold it, was actually correct. Not perfectly executed, not the complete financial plan it should have been, but the core of it, sound. Robert's house is worth 4 times what he paid for it. That is real, compounding wealth-building performance over 4 decades. And it happened largely while he was just living his life. He wasn't monitoring it. He wasn't rebalancing. He just owned something real and held it. The boomer generation's great financial win was this. They understood instinctively that ownership compounds, that buying something, a house, a business, a piece of land, and holding it across time was the move. They didn't call it asset accumulation. They didn't have the language, but they had the instinct. And for millions of them, that instinct paid off in ways they still underestimate when they're beating themselves up about the pension they underfunded. Robert got something genuinely right. He bought early, he held long, and time did the work. The lesson isn't to go out and buy the biggest house you can find. The lesson is simpler than that. Boomers understood that owning beats renting in assets, in businesses, in wealth, and that patience across decades is its own kind of strategy. Karen is 52, she's Gen X, the generation that gets sandwiched between boomers and millennials in every conversation and quietly ignored in most of them. And Karen got hit twice. The dot-com crash in 2000, she was in her late 20s, just starting to feel like she had some financial footing, and the market dropped 50%. Then 2008, she was 34, had 2 kids, a mortgage, and watched her portfolio shrink in real time while the news ran daily segments about the end of the financial world. And she kept going. That's the Gen X win. And it sounds simple until you understand just how hard it actually is. Because here's what most people did in 2008. Financially literate, intelligent, careful people. They stopped. They paused contributions. They moved money into cash. They waited for things to feel safer before they got back in, which meant they missed the recovery, which meant they locked in the loss and missed the gain. Karen didn't do that. Not because she was fearless, she was terrified, same as everyone else, but she'd set up her contributions to be automatic. She'd built a system that didn't require her to make a brave decision in the middle of a crisis. The money kept moving, the units kept accumulating, the market eventually recovered. and Karen was still in it. This is Gen X's underrated financial superpower: consistency under pressure. They are the generation that got quietly, stubbornly good at not panicking, at keeping their heads down and staying in the game when everything around them was telling them to get out. They didn't get a lot of credit for it. Gen X rarely gets credit for anything, but that discipline, that almost boring refusal to react, is one of the most genuinely valuable financial behaviors that exists. The lesson from Karen isn't to be fearless with your money, it's to build systems that make bravery unnecessary. Automate it. Make the right move the default move, so that when the crash comes, and it will come, you don't have to be a hero, you just have to do nothing. Marcus is 38. He's a millennial, and yes, the avocado toast jokes exist. We're all aware, let's move on. Because Marcus did something his dad never did. When Marcus started investing in his early 30s, later than he should have, he didn't walk into a bank and let someone put him into an actively managed fund with a 1.5% annual fee and a glossy brochure full of promises. He opened an account online, bought a low-cost index fund, and set up a monthly direct debit. That's it. That's the move. And it sounds boring. It sounds like the obvious thing, the thing everyone knows now. But millennials were actually the first generation to do this at scale. Their parents trusted financial advisors who were often, bluntly, salespeople with credentials. Their grandparents put money in savings accounts and called it investing. Millennials, partly out of necessity, partly out of distrust, partly out of having the internet, figured out that the simplest, cheapest version of investing was also the most effective one. The research on this is unambiguous. Most actively managed funds underperform the index over 10 years. The ones that do outperform are nearly impossible to identify in advance. The fee difference, compounded over decades, is enormous, and millennials, more than any generation before them, understood this and acted on it. Marcus may not have invested enough. He may have started too late. He may have used experiences as a substitute for assets in ways that cost him. All of that is true. But what he invested well. And 20 years from now, the index fund Marcus opened at 31 with £100 a month is going to be doing serious work. Quietly, cheaply, without anyone taking a cut on the way. The millennial win is this. They democratized smart investing. They took something that used to require a middleman and figured out they didn't need one. They backed simplicity when the industry was selling complexity. And they were right. Zoe is 24. She's Gen Z. And Gen Z gets talked about in two completely opposite ways, both of which miss the point. Either they're the most financially savvy generation ever, revolutionizing money with crypto and side hustles and passive income content. Or they're chronically online, performatively wealthy, spending on aesthetics while calling it investing. There's truth in both, but there's something underneath both narratives that doesn't get said enough. Zoe started investing at 21. Not with a lot. Not with perfect knowledge. Not with a complete financial plan. She opened an ISA, put in what she could, and began. And that beginning, that unglamorous, imperfect, small beginning, is worth more than almost anything else in this video. Here's why. If Zoe puts £200 a month into a stocks and shares ISA from age 21 to 65, at a modest average return of 7%, she ends up with somewhere in the region of £700,000. If she starts at 31 instead, same amount, same return, 10 years later, she ends up with around £340,000. 10 years of delay, half the outcome. The numbers are almost violent when you see them laid out. Gen Z's win isn't knowledge, though they have more of it than any previous generation at their age. It isn't the side hustle or the crypto or the content. The win is simply this. They started earlier than millennials started, earlier than Gen X started, earlier than boomers even thought to start. Time in the market is the most powerful financial force that exists. And Gen Z, whatever else you say about them, is buying more of it than any generation before them. Zoe is 24. She has 40 years of compounding ahead of her. That is the win, and she should understand, really understand, just how significant that is. 4 generations, 4 completely different financial realities, 4 completely different wins. And yet, when you lay them side by side, something emerges. Robert bought an asset and held it. Karen kept investing when everything told her to stop. Marcus backed simplicity over complexity and cut out the middleman. Zoe started before she was ready, before she had everything figured out, before the numbers felt significant enough to matter. Different decisions, different decades, different circumstances. But underneath all of them, the same instinct. At some point, each of them did something real, instead of something that just looked real. They made a move, sometimes just one, sometimes small, sometimes almost accidental, that was oriented toward actual building rather than the appearance of building. They put something in motion and let time do its work. That's the thread, and it's the same thread that runs through every generation that got it right. The form changes: property, pensions, index funds, ISAs. But the instinct underneath is always the same. Get something real. Start before it feels significant. Keep going when it's uncomfortable. Let it compound. The trap is prioritizing the signal of wealth over the substance of it. The win, the quiet, unglamorous, works every time win, is doing it the other way around. So here's what I want you to take from this. You don't have to be a boomer to have Robert's instinct for ownership. You don't have to be Gen X to build Karen's systems for consistency. You don't have to be a millennial to apply Marcus's clarity about cost and simplicity. And you don't have to be 24 to start earlier than you have been. The best financial move available to you right now is to borrow the win from all four of them. Own something real. Automate it. Keep it simple and cheap. And start or restart before you feel ready. Robert, Karen, Marcus, Zoe, none of them got it completely right. None of them had the full picture, but every single one of them had a moment, at least one, where they made the right call, where the substance won over the signal. The question is, which win do you need most right now? Is it Robert's? Do you need to commit to owning something real instead of waiting for the perfect moment? Is it Karen's? Do you need to automate, to take the decision out of your own hands before the next crash tests your nerve? Is it Marcus's? Do you need to simplify, to stop paying for complexity that isn't earning its cost? Or is it Zoe's? Do you just need to start? Smaller than feels meaningful, earlier than feels right, and trust that the time will do what the time always does. Tell me in the comments, not because anyone's keeping score, but because naming the win you need is usually the first step toward actually going and getting it.